Hello, I'd like to talk about my liver transplant journey from cirrhosis to recovery. A little bit about me. My name is Rudie. I was transplanted in March of 2023. I'm married. I have three sons. At the time of my transplant, they were 8, 11, and 13. So, as you can imagine, having their dad being so sick and then going through such a traumatic experience and operation, it was really hard on them. The cause of my liver cirrhosis was alcohol related, and I had acute kidney failure. And the day I was diagnosed was my first day of sobriety. I'm coming up now on 3 years of sobriety. So the day that everything changed was July 7th, 2022. I collapsed at home, and my wife called an ambulance, and I was rushed to the ER. At the ER, I waited forever for blood tests, and then my numbers looked really bad, so they decided to give me a scan, a CT scan, and I was diagnosed with cirrhosis. I was kind of out of it too. I had sepsis. My heart rate, I remember, was really high. It was like at 135. They were afraid I was going to have a heart attack. I was in really, really bad shape. I was hospitalized for 2 weeks, and during that time, my kidneys began recovering. Um, I, I can't remember the first week that much. I was in ICU a lot, but I know they did do a paracentesis and remove 2 liters of ascites from my abdomen. I remember that kind of half awake, not awake, thinking, whoa, that's weird. They did all sorts of procedures on me. And then for the final week in the hospital, I slowly recovered, and it was hell. Um, and then I was released to go home. I went home. It was a slow journey, but I had to learn how to walk again with a walker. I was kind of off balance a little bit. My kidneys fully recovered. I'm so lucky. And there's a picture of me and my son, my youngest son at the time, and I was starting to look a little bit better, although I could still looks like I'm still chronically ill. I was placed on a strict low sodium diet and diuretics. My I got assigned a hepatologist. I'd met with him initially. We kind of got the game plan going. As you know, if you or your loved one have cirrhosis, you know what that's about. I lost some weight. I lost a lot of fluid weight, and I started having improved energy. I ate a Mediterranean diet. I ate very healthy, and my hope at the time uh, was to avoid a liver transplant. That was the scariest thing in my mind to have to do, and my hepatologist hoped I could too. And he and I had a plan to try to avoid it, get healthy, and hope enough of my liver survived and I could recover. Usually, they say that takes a little over 6 months of abstaining from alcohol. But I declined. Uh, Actually, shortly before this COVID test I have, probably about 3 weeks before, my hepatologist called me, and I was still in high spirits thinking, hey, I might just beat this. He said, you know what? I want you to go for an expedited transplant evaluation. And that shook me hard. I said, why? I'm doing well. And he goes, yeah, yeah, calm down. You're doing well, and I'm hoping you can still avoid a transplant, but we're going to get you. It's such a long, arduous process of getting listed. We're going to get you listed just in case you need it. Because if you need it, you're going to want to have it all done. I said, okay. And then I got COVID, and I didn't really have cold like symptoms. I just tested positive, but I was really fatigued, and that must have really hit my system hard. My sodium dropped, my sodium serum dropped. And so when your sodium levels drop, they stop your diuretics. They give you a fluid restriction. That is hell, a nightmare. And so without the diuretics, I started having pleural effusions, and I had a nasty one in my right lung. And twice a week, I had to get a thoracentesis, which is brutal. Each time, I had to get 2.5 liters of fluid drained. So, a pleural effusion is when fluid accumulates around the sac or around your lungs. There's a lining between your lungs and your body cavity, and that can fill up with water or fluid and collapse your lung, so it feels like you can't breathe. Imagine taking 2.5 liters. That's over a 2 liter soda bottle and 1/2 liter plus that out of your chest cavity that was against your lung. It really sucked because you would get out of breath easily, and it felt like you couldn't breathe. And I remember walking into the clinic to get my thoracentesis, and I was out of breath. And then you get your thoracentesis and you feel relief and you can breathe, but then you have pain in your back and it hurts because they go through your back between the ribs and they stick a long needle in that's like a long knitting needle. They numb you, but that hurts like hell. And that needle guides in a catheter. And so after that, after the numbing wears off, it hurts. And so you hurt for a couple days. And by the time that pain went away for me, I would be filled with fluid again. I couldn't breathe. Anyway, so my labs were declining and I started going for all the tests for prerequisites for liver transplant. Here's what a thoracentesis looks like. That's me there with the tap in my back. I don't know if you can see a needle. Oh, here is a spinal needle here. That's what they use to numb it with. All right, so they go in to your skin with lidocaine, which burns, and they go deeper and deeper and deeper to numb all the way through into your body cavity. And that pain is so raw and painful. This doctor was the best. I was on a first name basis with him. I love him. And here's him doing one of my thoracentesis in the hospital. I got to know the entire pulmonology department at Kaiser Permanente Northwest, and I am here to tell you every single one of those doctors are amazing and compassionate and the best doctors ever. In fact, one of the doctors that I had actually went on to be a congresswoman for Oregon. So this is what the fluid looked like each time. You could see that numbing needle. Not fun. So, part of the transplant evaluation is you have to get an appointment with your transplant team. Um, I I was lucky. I had an appointment in late March of 2023, and if you remember the dates, I actually got transplanted in early March. But one December day, they called me. I think it was right before I got COVID, actually, and it's probably where I picked COVID up is at the hospital. And they called me and they said, "Hey, we have a cancellation for tomorrow for a liver transplant evaluation. Do you want to take it?" And that fateful day, I said yes. If I said no, I'd probably be dead right now. So I went in and I met the transplant team. It's an entire day appointment. You meet your transplant hepatologist, you meet a surgeon, you meet a pharmacist, you meet a social worker, you talk to people about your insurance and your coverage and money and payment, everything. And then they give you a long list of things you have to do. You have to get a bunch of vaccines. You have to get uh, tons of blood tests. You have to get PEth tests, which are the alcohol tests. You have to prove 6 months sobriety, at least at my center. You have to have 6 months of sobriety before you qualify. You have to get a stress test, an echocardiogram, an EKG, a dental exam. I couldn't get an appointment, and I have really good teeth. The doctor looked at my mouth, said, "Okay, well, don't worry about that." Bone density scan, urology exam, CT scans. Man, the two worst were the stress test because it wasn't a treadmill. They don't want a liver transplant or a liver cirrhosis patient running on a treadmill. So they induce a high heart rate using a drug, and it feels like you're gonna die because you're on a table and all of a sudden your heart rate's going up to 150 BPM, and it's a nightmare. The other one that sucked was there's a kidney stone in one of my kidneys, and periodically it puts a trace amount of blood in my urine. And to get a transplant, you have to rule out any type of cancers. So they told me I had to get a urological exam, which includes a scope of my bladder. And you can imagine how they go in to see your bladder, and they do not put you asleep, and that was hell. And the doctor was nice enough. She's really nice. And in the examiner, I said, "So how big is the scope?" I'm thinking, a little tiny fiber optic line. And she holds up a big pen and she says, "It's about this thick." I said, "You gotta be kidding me." She said, "Nope." And it was. So anyway, I got through all that. That was like 2 months of nightmare, or a month and a half of nightmare tests. So after I got everything done, I'd have blood tests all the time and monitoring. Um, I get all the soonest appointments to make those tests. I've been all over the metro area, different facilities. Whoever had the earliest opening. Um, yeah, the stress test and urology exam were horrible. And then I was just trying to maintain and survive with getting twice weekly thoracentesis and weekly blood draws. So one morning I went to that doctor that I showed you. I went to his office to get my Monday morning, or no, it was a Thursday morning thoracentesis, or Friday or whatever. And usually you wait in the waiting room and the nurse comes out. "Oh, hey, Rudie, how you doing?" And they know you, right? You've been there. And I'm waiting, and nothing, nothing, nothing. And then the doctor comes out. I'm thinking, this is not good. He comes out and he looks at me. He goes, "You get in here." It's like, okay. And he says, "I've got your hepatologist on the phone." And these guys all know each other on a first name basis. I say, "Yeah." He says, "Do you want to listen?" I say, "Yeah." And my hepatologist says, "Rudie, uh, your blood labs came back. Your sodium's 118. That's getting dangerous. I know you want to avoid transplant. Now it's time to pull the trigger. I'm going to admit you in the hospital with low sodium. We're going to monitor you, and you're having a transplant." It's like, "Are you sure? Can I get tips?" And the hepatologist, he said, "Rudie, I you're gonna be fine. You're young. You're gonna make it. This is the best thing for you. If I were to do a tips on you, you would die. There's not enough veins in your liver." And the pulmonologist was showing me the scans of my liver and showing me what he was talking about. And it was a shock. But then after the shock and fear, it's kind of a relief. I thought, okay, well, now I know my path. I remember him saying, his he would say to the pulmonologist, "Fred," said, "if you and I had this low of a sodium, we would be in a coma. I don't know how Rudy's walking around. His body is very tolerant." So um, they hospitalized me. While I was in the hospital, a few days later, I was officially listed. Then after getting pretty stable, they sent me home. The Kaiser team up here has a hospital at home program, which is really cool. So if you're not in critical condition and all you need is routine monitoring with blood labs and check-ins with doctors and nurses, they set you up at home. They put all the equipment in your home. You have like a video monitor, and somebody comes over twice a day and takes your blood labs. You get a visit from like a physician assistant once a day. I mean, it's like being in a hospital, but you're in your home. And it's fantastic because I hate hospitals, and I wanted to be with my kids, and they hated it when I was gone. And it was still during COVID time, so they didn't allow kids visiting in the hospitals. So I got a call from OHSU, and they said, "You have an offer. It's a backup offer." And oftentimes you'll get a backup offer. They'll call in multiple people when there's an organ available, because if something just isn't right with the first guy, they don't want to waste the organ, and they give it to the backup. And there were 3 livers that weekend, and all of them were taken by the primaries. And I was kind of sad, but kind of relieved because everything happened so fast. I thought, okay, at least I'll get to go home for a few days and process. Um, and so I went back to the hospital at home, and then and continued going twice weekly to get my thoracentesis. And then the night before my birthday, I was making birthday plans, and they weren't lavish birthday plans. I was with liver failure. My plan was to have my parents over and visit with them, really. And I got a call, and I noticed it was that number, the OHSU number, and it said, "Hi, Rudy. Um, we have a primary liver offer for you. Can you please be in at 7 a.m.?" And I said, "Are you kidding me?" She said, "We don't kid around." And I said, "Okay." And she said, "See you tomorrow." And I called my parents back. I said, "Scratch that plan. I'm getting a liver tomorrow." And they were really happy, because when you get to the point I was, you're just hoping for that call. So the day of surgery, I went in, and down here is the lobby, and I'm just sitting in the lobby. I could still walk, so my wife pulled the car up, and I walked out of the car, walked into the lobby. I'm sitting there looking at other people, thinking, "Man, I'm here to get a friggin' liver transplant on my birthday, nonetheless." I remember I checked in, and they said date of birth, and I told them the date of birth, and they said, "Wow, you're getting a really good gift for your birthday." I said, "You're telling me." So I arrived at 7 a.m., and then they put me in my room, and you can see here's the door of the room. It's like a typical hospital door, and you'll see, "What's the plan today? A new liver." Up ad lib, that meant I was still mobile. NPO, don't no food, no water. And there's my doctor, my surgeon, and my nurse. And then there's the checklist. I had to get an IV, labs, a pre-surgery shower. And during that time, you're in there for a couple hours. You meet with the surgeon, you meet with the anesthesiology team, and you just get the game plan. And then my OR time was 1 p.m. At about 12:45, 12:40, 12:45, they wheeled me into the pre-op staging area. And they at that time I had my IV already, and the anesthesiologist, she was really nice, and she said, "I have something called Versed. It's a benzo, and I can give it to you, and it'll make you totally relaxed, and you won't really care about much anything, and you may not even remember this point forward." I said, "Yeah, please give it to me." And I remember it. I look back on it. It's kind of like a grainy movie. I remember parts of it. She gave me that, and they wheeled me into the operating room. And I remember they wheeled my bed next to the OR table, and they said, "Are you able to kind of scooch up and over?" I said, "Yeah, I can do that." And slid onto the OR table, and then the anesthesiologist was at the foot of my bed, and I remember her talking to me, and saying, "We're going to put you out." It was 1 p.m. And once we give you the propofol, you'll fall asleep, and then we'll prep you. You'll get they give you a neck IV. I think I had two neck IVs, um, and catheter and all that stuff. They get you all ready when you're already under. And then they start the surgery about 3 p.m., and they were done at 10:45, and then they put me in the ICU for monitoring, and they let me sleep till 5:45 in the morning. And I remember I woke up hearing, "Rudy, Rudy, Rudy, you got a new liver. Rudy, it worked." I was like, "Oh my gosh, already?" So you wake up with a breathing tube. People might think that's kind of scary, but you're so out of it. You're just confused as to why you can't talk. But after a liver transplant, a lot of people have delirium, and it's hallucinations. And I heard voices. Um, the uh, the communication, the pager, the intercom on your bed, where you talk to nurses. I heard two different voices out of that all the time the first day and a half. One was an old lady, and she was really like joyful, but her condition was poor. And I thought, man, this lady's really optimistic because she kept on saying, "Oh yeah, oh I guess I need another operation. That's fine." And then there was another guy who was an angry old guy, and he kept on screaming and cussing and saying, "You're killing me! I'm having a heart attack. Get in here!" And I thought, what? Why aren't the nurses responding to this guy? I thought it was all real, and I thought my heart rate kept on going up and up and up, and then going down, kind of like peaks and valleys. And I took a selfie picture with the heart monitor behind me, and I'd look at the picture and I saw the peaks and valleys in that picture. But today when I look at it, it's all normal. So it really messed with me. Um, but you know, that's just how it is. The first day is kind of really you're in and out in the ICU. They make you sit up very first day, and that's hard. And then after a day or day and a half, they put me on the recovery floor. And when I was on the recovery floor, it was a few floors below and down the hall a lot. I remember I started hearing those voices, and then I realized, wait a second, that's not real because I'm in a different location, and those two people are still there. That's not real. And then as soon as I realized, oh, that's not real, those voices went away. The most pain I had was gas pain. I didn't have any surgical pain. They kept me numbed up with oxycodone, and they did Dilaudid too, but that was too much. I felt myself stopping breathing. I said, please, no more Dilaudid. But the gas pain was worse. No amount of narcotics can calm gas pain. I guess it's a different pain pathway. Because you don't poop for 3 days. I had swollen legs and leaking drain. But by day 4, I was really good. I started feeling like better than I had in months. And so the recovery time, basically, you're watching TV, you're eating, you get frequent labs. They didn't tell me this until I was there, but apparently, on most people, right after transplant, your bilirubin goes back to almost zero. Your eyes clear up, your skin clears up. And then days 1 through 4, it starts rising again. It's probably because your bile ducts are swollen or something, and you're getting back up. But I got yellow again. My eyes got yellow again, and I was worried, but the surgeon said, "Don't worry, don't worry. By day 5, we should see it start coming down." I said, "Well, what if it doesn't come down?" And he said, "Well, if it doesn't, we go in and place a stent. It's not a big deal. Don't worry about it." Well, it went down. I didn't need a stent. Lots of physical therapy. They'd come by twice a day. They'd make you sit up, sit in a chair. They'd make you walk around. I'd have to walk around the hallway with a walker. I remember they made me climb up a set of steps. They had like this little portable 3-step thing. And there's management of the JP drain. That damn drain, I had so much fluid in me, it kept on leaking. That was kind of gross. And then there was a lot of medication education on how to take your medicine and glucose monitoring and insulin. You're going to most likely need insulin, at least for a little while post-op, because you're on so much prednisone, and the prednisone gives you insulin resistance. So I needed 4 insulin shots a day, once in the morning and then one before each meal. I eventually got off of insulin, but later on down the road, I did develop type 2 diabetes. Immunosuppressant medications contribute to that, and I also gained a lot of weight post-transplant, which a lot of people do. Here is a must have for you if you're going to go in for a transplant. Bring a long phone charger. The hospital beds are far from your outlets, and that's going to be your sole source of entertainment, communication, and comfort. You'll have a TV too, but you'll want a long phone charger. So if you're going to bring one thing, they'll take care of the rest for you. Uh, you're going to start out taking 20 to 25 pills twice daily. The main immune suppressant used here in the United States is tacrolimus, or as my doctor calls it, tacrolimus, and it's neurotoxic. They got to fine tune your levels, and your brain has to get used to having it. So you get really bad hand tremors, and they last for about 6 weeks. Your hands really shake, but it goes away. My hands are as stable as a rock now, but it also sucked having to give yourself insulin with your hand shaking. But luckily, I don't have insulin or handshakes shaking anymore. And then I was able to taper off the prednisone at 3 months, and then also get off the antibiotics, antifungals, antiviral pills, everything. So life after discharge, I was discharged after 1 week. So week one, I used a walker to get around. Week two, I was able to get out of bed alone. For me, it was hard because they teach you how to maneuver your daily life without using any of your ab muscles. So that's very difficult. And for me, it was hard because my legs were still full of fluid. So for the first week, I needed my wife to lift my legs into the bed for me. By week five, I was walking without a walker or support. The pain and swelling slowly decreased, but it was slow. And they always said, be patient, be patient. And they put me on some diuretics to help expedite the leg and ankle edema. And that was for about 3 weeks. And then, man, you're peeing a lot. I remember having to wear compression socks to get to my appointments. When you're first discharged, you got to go to clinic twice a week and labs twice a week. But so you're always in the car going somewhere. So here's me before transplant, and then about a month after. You can tell I look a lot healthier and a lot happier after a transplant. It's amazing what having a functioning liver will do to your body. At 2 months post transplant, I went back to full time work. I have a desk job, and I was able to. It was really hard, but I did it. I got an ADA accommodation at work for a lifting restriction. You can't lift more than 10 pounds for 3 months. I was very, very tired for the first week or two. But, this working forced me into a routine. I had to wake up at the same time every day. I had to take a shower every day. I had to get in my car. I had to drive and commute. And that forced routine, I believe, contributed to my faster recovery. By 6 months, I started coaching freaking youth football, man. I uh I pushed myself beyond my comfort zone. I didn't know how to coach, but they needed a coach to save the season for my oldest son's team, and I thought, what the heck? My donor would want me to do this. So I threw my hat in the ring and I coached. It was the best thing I ever did. I still had swelling in the legs and ankles a little bit. I took a folding chair around with me. I explained to the parents, I said, I'd been through some medical stuff. I'm still recovering. It was hard, but boy, oh boy, it was really, really worth it. So, a year post, I felt about 98% recovered. I rarely needed a nap and still a little sore at times. Um, Today, I feel totally normal. I sometimes forget I even had a liver transplant. In fact, I only remember like today I had to have my blood labs, and I'm not even nervous having labs anymore because they're all perfect. You get after a transplant, your CBC looks a little wacky because of your immune suppressant drugs, but otherwise, my labs are perfect. They're like a healthy person. I ran a political campaign for school board. I ended up losing. I ran against an incumbent, but I work in a highly technical career as an IT lead, and I even launched this YouTube channel that you're watching. I'm always keeping busy. I'm super present with my family. I bust my butt doing yard work and keeping my pool clean and making everything nice. I'm always up and at 'em and doing something. I am taking full advantage of my life, my second life. That's why I'm Rudie 2.0. So I feel great. Thank you to my donor. Thank you to the men and women doctors up at OHSU that gave me a second chance at life. So, if you're watching this and you're sick right now or you're about to go through transplant, I just want you to know that you can do this. You have to take it seriously. You have to follow all your doctor's orders and work hard at it. But I want you to know it gets better. And life is waiting for you on the other side. And, I got my life back, and you can too. So, thank you. I hope that you enjoyed this presentation. I hope it helps you. I'm doing this to help people. And if you have any questions, please comment below and I will try to answer every single question. Okay. I hope you are well. I wish you the best success and please take care.